we talked about this earlier this morning as well. A lot of times, right? I mean, actually, in most scenarios, sales ops started off as a shadow IT.
Yes.
Right? I'm not getting support from my IT team, so I'm just going to hire a guy, put him in touch with CRM, and just let him run with it. And eventually, that role becomes big, and we go back and forth between sales and IT. And sales says, I'm not getting support from IT, and IT says, I'm going to give you some guys who will do some Salesforce customization. So how do you build a partnership in that case?
Right. So actually, let's do this. How many of you have built a partnership with your IT organization? Okay, just remember, whatever happens in sales ops only gets announced at SKO, so that's okay, don't worry. So we're amongst friends here. So let's ask the question again. How many of you have actually built up good partnerships with IT? Okay. How many of those are directly involved with you on working on data issues? Very few. Okay. So, I think that there's a critical piece to this is one of the things that a lot of people in the IT organization don't tend to connect and align with is being able to get people enabled and giving them context about what you're trying to achieve. This is the biggest failure of sales ops functions and IT functions not being able to work together. Because what happens is you come into either a company sales kickoff or a QBR, you've come up with objectives, you've figured out what revenue targets are, you've come up with comp plans and all the other stuff around it. And you haven't really articulated that. And by I mean we collectively haven't had a conversation about what we're actually trying to achieve, right? And when you don't have that conversation, then then it comes down to systematic tooling issues.
Yeah, then you go to the CRM admin.
Exactly, then it's like that, and that's exactly why, because in the same instance, what you've got to be able to do is like changing priorities from IT perspective it's a real task. And so one is, I'll give you 3 pieces of advice. Number 1 is signal early. Like you should be talking about blocking people's calendars. I'm giving you deep tactics here, like literally blocking people's calendars and bringing people in from the IT organization. If you don't have someone in IT, then you need to be able to fight that fight because IT people love having additional resources. And so if they've got friends outside of IT saying, we should give them more resources to work with us, that's a really, really good thing. That's one. Number 2 is figure out what the first visible win looks like. This is one of the key failures that most people seem to get. They're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to have this entire data cleansing process, and we're going to have all of these committees. Forget that, right? Figure out what your first 0 to 1, like figure that piece out, and then everything else goes along the line. I think the third thing is there is a big focus on enablement. There's a very big disconnect about where the value chain and value proposition is in terms of what sales ops does and IT does. Actually, very, very close correlation. That's why I'm deeply passionate about it. And so if anyone actually, I'll volunteer it now. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards. But if you think it makes sense to be able to have a conversation with, not necessarily with your CIO, but IT organization, if you want to facilitate that, I'm more than happy to basically volunteer that right off the bat. That's easy for me. And because I think it's important. And I think it's important because companies are now competing at a level that they haven't been doing so before, number 1. So do you really want to spend time trying to figure out the right data set and keeping it clean, or do you want to go out and sell? I know very easily what the answer to that question is, right? So if you come down to the objective of understanding that you're creating, and you're part of creating friction in the business, and you're able to articulate that back to IT and be able to make sure that sales ops and IT are aligned, I think that's a critical piece.